The bottom line is that West Africa is finally opening its doors back up to Guinea. After the 2021 coup, the neighboring group, ECOWAS, basically put the country in timeout with heavy sanctions that blocked trade and travel. But after Guinea held elections in late 2025 and swore in Mamady Doumbouya as a civilian president this January, ECOWAS decided that they had seen enough progress to call it even. Now, they officially scrapped all those penalties on January 28, 2026, welcoming Guinea back as a full member of the club. Now, while it sounds like a total mission accomplished moment, it is a bit more nuanced than that. Because on paper, Guinea followed the rules, held the vote, and restored legal order, which is exactly why the sanctions were dropped. However, some people are still raising eyebrows because the guy who led the original military takeover is the same person who just won the presidency. So for ECOWAS, the box is checked and the sanctions are gone. But for the region, it is a massive test case of whether a soldier turned president can actually keep things stable in the long run. Now, joining us to speak on this, we have Paul Ejime. He's an African affairs analyst in London, UK, and also Franklin Nossiter. He is Sahel analyst, International Crisis Group. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us at this time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's begin with the question, with the new normal in West Africa, which is the coup to candidacy pipeline. Are we seeing a restoration of democracy or just the successful civilianization of a military regime? Let's begin with you, Paul.
Thank you, Dashin. It is not any form of moving to, democracy. Remember, this is where West Africa is coming from. In the 70s and 80s, we had dictators, we had authoritarian regimes that embrace multi-party democracy, which was the in thing then. But what we're having is now that they are rolling back the hand of the clock and then replacing those who, by 2020, all the 15 member countries of ECOWAS were operating one form of democratic or civilian government or another, no matter how imperfect. But Mali now started it with the coup there by Assimi Goïta, then followed by Guinea, this Guinea that we are talking about, and then others followed, Burkina Faso, Niger, and then this man topped it up, Palu of Guinea-Bissau with his own self-coup. So it is, they are not doing democracy any good. If anything, democracy is on the retreat. And where we have, but the question should be asked about ECOWAS. What are they doing? Because these are, for what he has done, Doumbouya, he has violated ECOWAS protocol, the supplementary protocol on democracy and good governance, which is against unconstitutional change of government. He organized a referendum, changed the constitution, and then that protocol says that a soldier cannot transmit to a civilian. But this is what he has just done. And ECOWAS are just giving him, a slap on the wrist. So what does he say for a rules-based organization? Or what are you saying to coup makers? In fact, you are now telling them, please, if you are not happy with what, if you have a political ambition, just grab power. You can organize your own coup like Mbalo has done in Guinea-Bissau, and come back. You are welcome. This is not even a case of prodigal son. It is a case of rolling out the carpet for, anarchy. And then, lawlessness, and then making ECOWAS look really, really terrible. I think most of the founding fathers will be rolling in their graves. The one is the only surviving one. I wonder what he'll be saying about what is happening for the organization that was once lauded, once acknowledged as the, doing what others have not done. settling in what is it called, preventive diplomacy and conflict prevention, conflict resolution and management. But here we are. ECOWAS can no longer, is a shadow of itself. Let's put it this way. Let me give time to my colleague to also speak.
All right, so let's come to Mr. Nossiter. You know, to even stand in the December 2025 election, you know, candidates had to pay a deposit of 875 million Guinean francs. That's roughly about $100,000. So in a country where the average person lives on a few dollars a day, wasn't this election like a pay-to-play by design?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's the cost of deposing the candidacy. Obviously, you know, that's going to block a lot of people. But even more than that, I mean, you have two very well-known political figures in Guinea. You know, the former president Alpha Condé and the former prime minister Cellou Dalein Diallo, and then also another former prime minister Sékou Touré. None of the three of them were allowed to run. These are three of probably the most well-known political figures in Guinea. You also had kind of, you know, young rising Guinean politicians who have been thrown to prison or disappeared. So I would say, you know, yeah, while the cost of entry is certainly one concern to say, well, maybe this wasn't the most inclusive candidate selection. I mean, to be honest with you, they didn't even really try and make a show of having a real opponent run in the elections. You know, I don't think that, you know, they spent the last 4 years since coming to power in September 2021, making sure that if and when they had elections, there would be no doubt that their guy, Doumbouya, would win. And that's exactly what they did.
So, but then what signal does this send to the alliance of Sahel states? I'm talking about Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. You know, if they follow the Guinean model, hold a vote, win by a landslide, and wait for the sanctions to vanish, has ECOWAS effectively retired its zero-tolerance policy for coups, or is this a way to, you know, lure them back to ECOWAS as well? Still for you, Mr. Nossiter.
Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty different situation with Mali, Burkina, and Niger. I mean, Guinea definitely has shown that there's a model Guinea, but not just Guinea. I think Chad, with the current president, you know, Kaka Debi, who was the son of the previous president, he did it even before Doumbouya, right? Is you make a big show of having a political dialogue, and then you have elections and you win the elections and then you're the president and you have no problems. It's interesting, you know, in the Sahel, Mali, Burkina, Niger, you know, as you mentioned, actually they've chosen not to do that. And I think that there's a couple of reasons for that, but I think one of the biggest one is that really sets it apart is, you know, the big pressure that these guys are under from, you know, jihadist groups and armed groups, you know, non-state armed groups, like they say, you know, that means that they've actually broken with ECOWAS, they've broken with us. So I would say actually, you know, as Mr. Paul pointed out, you know, we're seeing more coups in the region, all of this. I'd say right now we're seeing two different kinds of coup leader. You have the guys who like Doumbouya, like Debi and Chad, also like Origi in Gabon. These are the guys who want to still, you know, remain friends with the West, remain friends with ECOWAS, remain friends, you know, with the quote unquote international community. And so they'll play the game. They do the elections. You know, everyone knows who's going to win the election, but they go through the motions. And then everyone welcomes them back. With the Sahel, you know, they've actually gone the different way. And they've said, you know what, elections, you know, it's the West that wants us to have elections anyway. We don't need elections. And you know, we're gonna do our own thing, our own sovereign thing. And so they make a radical break with ECOWAS, a radical break with the West as well. And I think it's a bit difficult to tell, but it seems like they have some popularity from that. So I would draw a distinction. And then again, just if I can, on the sanctions with ECOWAS and Guinea, I think ECOWAS was in a pretty difficult position because Guinea, unlike the Sahel countries, Guinea is not landlocked. Guinea has, you know, the port of Conakry. And so I think it's a pretty open question, you know, how much leverage did ECOWAS really have? You know, what could ECOWAS really do to Guinea to force, you know, a more democratic transition? I'm not sure.
Okay, so let's come to Paul. Paul, critics actually do say that ECOWAS was soft on Guinea because it couldn't afford to lose another member, you know, after the exit of Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. So would you agree with that? Did the bloc trade its democratic principles just to keep the map of West Africa from shrinking any further?
That would be a very lazy excuse because they say, spare the rod and then you spoil the child. This is the same ECOWAS that has done something differently in the past. And I can give you two examples. When Niger, this same Niger that has gone up now, the Tanja in 2009, wanted to, hold an election that ECOWAS is not approved of. ECOWAS sanctioned him. He sanctioned Niger, suspended Niger from ECOWAS. That is how to start. And that was a signal. Again, in 2011, the dictator Yahya Jammeh of the Gambia called an election but ECOWAS sent a fact-finding mission, and the report said no, this election cannot, just like the same election that these people are holding without opposition members. ECOWAS said no. The commission said no, we are not sending observers. They boycotted that election and did not recognize Jammeh's victory. That is a kind of, strong, very unpopular decision that you might take. But those were the things that strengthened why people saw ECOWAS as, a relevant organization, unlike the AU and others. You have to take these hard, tough decisions to show that you are a rules-based organization. But what has happened in the past decade is that the civilians are the ones carrying out constitutional coups, electoral coups, ballot box coups, rigging elections, and then now coming down on their citizens. In Benin, for instance, a woman is in prison for daring to challenge Talon, who just survived a coup. She's there, 20 years in prison. What was her offense? For challenging Talon. These people, they don't want opposition. There is no political tolerance. And you can't have that and say you are running a democracy. So ECOWAS has dropped the button. It has dropped the ball. And it requires now what I call, an urgent, redemption, reinvention, and then we're starting with the ECOWAS Commission, where you have civil servants, professionals there. They should advise these leaders and come out. Like, everybody is afraid. They don't want to, they don't want to take decisions that. But it was the same commission that took these decisions that I told you about. You should tell the leaders that what they are doing is wrong. It's not right, because you cannot now, after accepting Doumbouya back, what are you telling other coup makers? It's not that coup making. For instance, look at it. The man in Guinea-Bissau has taken now the highest rank, 4-star general. That is what Goita in Mali has done. That is what the man in Niger has done. And it's only the guy in Burkina Faso, Traoré, that remains a captain. Okay. But from their body language, some of them have shown that it is power grab, that there is no difference. You cannot justify coups in this in the 21st century, no matter how pleasant it may look. Mark you, very soon we'll be seeing coups inside coups. There will be coups. In fact, in any case, in Burkina Faso, you remember that it wasn't Traoré had to. He organized a coup against the man who took over from Marc Kabore. So that shows you that coup is not the answer. A military rule is not the answer, because eventually they will do all these things they are doing and still want to go back to civilian administration. So what is the end game? So, but I blame the political leadership, the civilians. They are the ones responsible for these other coups, civilian coups or constitutional coups, which the military is now exploiting. Because they say they use civilians, they use the military to quell civilians when they protest. And because the military has the weapons, they now shove them aside and then take power. Who doesn't like power? But that is not what we take ECOWAS forward. It cannot, in this age where they are supposed to gel together to be able to confront the political, the global world order or disorder that where the Trumps are operating.
All right, Mr. Paul, sadly we have just a few minutes, but let's hear the final thoughts of Franklin just before we wrap up on this.
Yeah, thank you. And I think, Mr. Paul, I'm glad that you brought up the examples of Tanja, Yahya Jammeh in Gambia, and why not also Guinea with Moussa Dadis Camara and then Sekouba Konaté, in 2009, 2010. I think the big thing that's changed, ECOWAS used to be able to do stuff about this, right? ECOWAS used to, and then Burkina Faso as well, for example, after there was the popular uprising against Blaise Compaoré, and then I think it was Gilbert Diendéré tried to take over in a coup against the civilians, who had taken power. Anyway, and so what's changed? Why can't ECOWAS do what it used to be able to do? And I think that it's got to do, unfortunately, for ECOWAS with things that ECOWAS can't control. Just to kind of be devil's advocate for ECOWAS, I think if ECOWAS had tried to take a strong position on Guinea and on Doumbouya and say, no, you can't do this, we're not going to let you back in, even if you hold these elections and win, ECOWAS would have been all alone. Guinea, something we haven't talked about yet, has a massive iron mining project called Simandou, which has the potential, I think, to be the biggest iron mine in the world. That's just getting started right now. And everyone's involved in that. You have the Chinese who are involved in that. You have the Americans who are involved in that. You have the French who are involved in that. You have the Turkish who are not involved, I think, in Simandou, but who are involved in the economy in other places, etc. All of that to say that, and all of these countries have these economic interests that more and more, as we can see with, for example, President Donald Trump in the U.S., these economic interests are more important than norms around democracy. So if ECOWAS had really tried to crack down, I think they would have been all alone. And Guinea would have said, well, you can be mad at us if you want. We're going to do our business with the Chinese, with the Americans, and good luck trying to stop us.
All right. Thank you so much, gentlemen. So sad we had to stop here. I wish we had more time to speak on this. Paul Ejime, African Affairs Analyst, and Franklin Nossiter, Sahel Analyst, International Crisis Group, for joining us. We will do this again next time. Thank you.